Hey, everybody. We are just jumping in at the start of this episode to announce that we have launched our Patreon officially.
Hey, pew, 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 pew. Sam, insert some like trumpet sounds and like cool shit.
Yeah.
Damn, that was good, dude. Yes, if you guys haven't seen our announcement on social media or elsewhere, we have our Patreon up and running right now. We're kicking it off with 2 tiers. For $3, you can be in our pinch tier, which is access to our podcast Discord. You can chat with us. You can chat with other people that love the Howling Salt Mine. We'll chat about salty stories and, just kind of hang out with our little community that we have here. And then if you want to get in at the $7 tier, this is called a dash. You can see that there's a theme here with salt sprinklings. If you get in at our dash tier, you will get access to the Discord, of course, and you will also become a member of our Salt Council, where we will, kind of propose ideas to you guys for future episodes and things like that. Just sort of get
future merch potentially.
Yeah, just kind of, have your fingers in the creative side of this a little bit as we kind of use you guys as a sounding board for what we kind of want to potentially do with the show. And then you'll also get an extra bonus episode from us every month. This will vary from things that we've recorded with the 3 of us, some things that we may bring our friend Nick or friend Pat in, or other friends in the MTG community in to record these. Those episodes will be a little bit more long form, not necessarily talking about salty stories, just talking about different Magic the Gathering topics and things like that. Might sound kind of similar to our Magic 30 episode as well. A little bit less edited, a little bit more fun and just kind of raw.
Little raw dog style, if you know what I mean.
Exactly. 3 raw dogs.
Oh.
3 uncooked hot dogs just in a room.
For the record, Mike really loves the thought of this.
I don't like this. 2 weird uncooked hot dogs and like one guy making a podcast.
Oh man, yeah. I guess I'll be the guy making the podcast. You guys can be the hot dogs. Well, anyways, we hope you guys check it out. And this is something that we're just kicking it off. We're all pretty new to this, so we're hoping to improve it, add more tiers in the future. We got some big plans. This is really the first step that we're taking in bringing some higher quality to this podcast, doing more giveaways, all that stuff.
Yeah, and anything you support will be pretty much going right back into the podcast. For now, we're looking to cover some costs like our Zoom license and a microphone stand so I can stop knocking my water bottle.
Yeah, if anyone is like, man, these guys are getting greedy and trying to squeeze all the money out of us, it's like there are so many costs that have to be taken on by this podcast before we can even think about turning a profit on it. So maybe one day, but man, that's like Josh Lee Kwai shit. We're not even close.
So also a bonus piece for this is going to be that the first 50 patrons that we get at our dash tier will also be getting some of our Howling Salt Mine tokens. And a lot of people had asked about them. And so this is your way to get some.
Exactly. We have about 200 tokens. So each person is going to get a play set of 4 of these treasure tokens. And because these can be kind of easily mailed out, we're opening this up to our international followers as well. So whether you're in the US, Canada, or overseas internationally, you'll be able to get 4 of these treasure tokens yourself.
Hype, hype, hype. Join the Patreon.
Join it, guys. Come chat with us in the Discord. And hopefully this is going to be pretty cool. One podcast, mining the Magic the Gathering subreddits for salt. This is the Howling Salt Mine. It's the Howling Salt Mine. The Howling Salt Mine. Welcome back, prospectors, to the Howling Salt Mine podcast, where I'm getting teased. I'm Sam. Fuck. How do we start these?
Man.
Where are your notes?
You guys know this is the podcast where we delve into those salty minds.
Whoa, 3 times this week.
Of the Magic the Gathering subreddits, looking for the saltiest posts that we're going to pull up, talk about, and share with you, our dear prospectors, listening at home, driving in your car, washing the dishes,
Walking your dog.
fucking off at work,
He's trying, folks.
showering.
Yeah, that's the one. I always listen to podcasts showering.
I do. I
listen to
podcasts in the
Twitch stream
shower.
showering, actually.
You fucking pervert.
No, it's like I ate your pie, like fucking like Kaizo Ironmon streams, not hot tub streams.
As always, I'm your host, Sam, and I'm joined by my 2 co-hosts, Mike and Tony. Say hey, guys.
What's up?
Hello.
We're in a bit of a punchy mood today because we've been talking business for like an hour and a half.
And we disagree vehemently.
Yeah, this is the
About
last
everything.
episode. We're breaking up. This is it.
It's been a wild ride.
It's been pretty crazy. Well, it'll just be my solo show from now on
Get wrecked.
called Get Wrecked.
Yeah, that's my fucking phrase. You can't take that from me.
Man, EDH Rec should really have a like monthly article called Get Wrecked.
I thought you were gonna say a monthly game where they all get smashed and then play Commander and like film it and send it
Call
out.
it
would be good.
EDH Get Wrecked. That would be amazing.
Or the Moxfield like recommendation button should just be get wrecked.
And it just pulls in all the top. Oh, that would be amazing, dude.
That button exists, you know.
To just pull in all the top things from EDH Rec?
Yeah. To pull in things from EDH Rec for your commander that aren't in your list already.
What?
Yeah.
Sounds like a fucking scrub who
fucking
net
crazy.
decks.
I
knows
gotta
how
put
to
out
do
my
that.
tutorial. I gotta put out
Yeah.
my Moxfield tutorial.
You really do. Let's get that. Let's get that partnership first. So what's new with you guys?
Well, I've put together my Secret Santa deck for
Ooh.
our shit.
Same cards showed up for
We've
that.
definitely talked about it before, but we do this like Secret Santa like deck thing every year. And every year we're like, oh, here's the limit. And I always tend to break that limit because I just want to buy shit and put it in the decks. And so I usually do.
Yeah, I went way over. I was telling Mike before you jumped on today, Tony, that when I was pulling the deck together, it was giving me like all the different card options for each individual card because I used Card Kingdom this time. And there were like foils that were like, oh, it's like only 10 cents more for the foil. I was like, yeah, I'll get the foil. Let's bling out this deck. And then at a certain point, it's like, oh, it's only like $2 more for the foil. I was like, yeah, fucking bling it out, man. Like, oh, there's a secret layer version of this card. Let's bling it out.
So when you said you wanted to do blinged out decks for everyone in the group, really, this is Mike's blinged out deck. He
Please.
started it for him.
Love it.
But I didn't do it for everything. So it's just going to have like 10 foils randomly in it
Yeah.
for weird ass cards.
This is the exact same. My cards also all showed up, and I was worried they weren't going to show up in time because I ordered on TCG Player, and the date that it said they were going to show up is like 3 days after we've planned to play. So I, in a panic, also ordered all of these same cards on Card Kingdom because they were like, yeah, this will definitely show up in time. And then the TCG Player order showed up today, like 2 weeks ahead of when they needed to be here.
Nice.
So now just 2 copies of the deck.
Well, which is great because after goldfishing it for literally like 20 hours, I want my own copy of it anyway. So
I feel like I have just done what I normally do and like ordered a shit ton of cards, like too many, and I will somehow turn it into something. But I also had the problem of like while I was buying cards, like fucking TCG Player gets me with those like other people like this or want this, and like somehow there's always a fucking borderless card in there, and I'm like, yeah, I do want that. The next thing I knew, I bought like $150 worth of random ass borderless cards, like
Oh my
borderless
God.
lands and an Imp Seal. The Imp
Oh,
Seal I'm
man.
happy about, but
How much was the Imp Seal?
it was like $76.
What?
I'm
Wow.
not
I
proud.
overpaid mine a lot.
Oh, well, then I'm proud. Yay,
Yeah. Pretty
me.
bad. Pretty shameful. Feeling
I
pretty
was
bad
just
over here
waiting for the
about that.
prices to go down. So,
I think I bought it at like the peak. It was pretty cool. I am not a Magic financial guy. Like every Magic decision I've made is poorly financial. I'm still waiting for Bubbling Muck to fucking spike. I have like 200 Bubbling Mucks I'm sitting on. Somebody out there make a sweet CDH deck with Bubbling Muck and just make it go crazy for me.
What is Bubbling Muck?
That's the sacrifice your swamps one, right?
No, that's Lake of the Dead. That is an expensive card. Bubbling Muck is High Tide, but for black mana.
Well, for
swamps. Oh, is it just one?
For one. Yep.
Yeah. It's literally just High Tide.
It's literally High Tide for swamps. It's great.
I'm gonna fucking order one right now.
Well, Sam's got 200. Can just give you one. They're about to spike though, so you might have to cover the differential.
Exactly. Yeah. Oh, wait, before we get into it, I do also want to just tell you about this really sad dinner I ate.
Wait, hang on. How much did you buy Bubbling Muck for?
I don't know, like $1.30. How much is it?
Oh, it's like $1.50.
Fuck yeah.
Hey, $2
for
profit.
Heavily played ones. It's like
mine are near mint, dude. You know I'm only hanging on to that high quality paper.
Yeah, I mean, market value says it's like somewhere around like 260.
Fuck yeah, dude.
So you've made a little bit of money.
Yeah, my future children will go to college off my Bubbling Muck.
Oh, it's a fucking sorcery. He didn't say it was sorcery.
Oh, right.
Yeah, it's a
not
sorcery.
Quite,
it's
not high tide. Not quite.
It's not
high
quite
tide.
High Tide. It's a little worse.
What the fuck is this trash card?
Black doesn't do things at instant speed anyway. It's fine.
Exactly.
Using it on your turn.
Anyway, talk to us about your food, Sam.
Yes, my food. So I didn't have like any time. I finished working at like 5:45 and we were going to record at 6. So I was like, I don't have any time to make real food. So every once in a while you got to fall back on your like college bachelor days and you just have like a hot dog abomination. So I had a hot dog on a waffle with like cheese.
Like a Lego my Eggo waffle?
Yeah, it wasn't it actually wasn't even an Eggo. It was like some off-brand Eggo.
Oh, that's trash.
Oh man, it was great. Whenever I do that, I just love to take a picture of it. It's like so funny.
You got to send it to MTG Hot Dog.
Oh, I really should. I really should. And be like, is this what you mean? Is this what you want from me? Oh man, yeah, that's going on the Twitter.
Love that. Love that.
Which still exists. Twitter still exists
for now.
For now, we'll see.
It's going to exist for a while. It's just no new functionality or like capabilities, and like everything's going to go to shit as all the employees are now gone.
Yeah, we'll see, man.
As soon as Moxfield Twitter opens,
dude,
Twitter as a whole is going to die because it's completely just propped up by the Magic community. You can tell at this point.
Yeah, it's over. We're all going to the Moxfield. It's going to be amazing, dude.
It'll have card linking. That'll be game changing.
That will be fucking crazy, dude. You can pull your EDH rec cards that you didn't mention in your tweet. You can just pull them right in.
Someone tweets, what cards should I put in this commander? And you can just hit an EDH rec button for them.
All right, let's get into it, boys, shall we?
Yes.
What is salt? You fucking know what it is.
Yeah. Fucking no. You fucking know.
All right. Our first post comes to us from the EDH subreddit. And it comes to us from Sugi Time.
Hey,
I remember that one.
Yeah, returning Reddit user Sugi Time, who we actually met at Magic 30. What's up, dude? What's going on? How you been? How you doing? I met him at Magic 30. You guys weren't there.
Okay, I was just like, I met them?
He was upstairs in Building B.
Yeah, he had the sign with him.
He did. He had the big sign.
Oh, right. Winning.
So
anyway, biggest intro to a post ever.
Yeah, right. If you see Sugi Time on Reddit, give him a fucking upvote, yo. Do it. The post title is called, Is It Possible to Pub Stomp with an Unaltered Precon?
Ooh.
I'll admit we've been sitting on this one for a while because it's a fucking long post. And I'll read it and edit out some of it.
You should just speed up the audio of you reading it back.
Oh my God.
2 times it.
That would be
chipmunk mode.
Oh man, that'd be funny. Maybe I will. And the post goes, a few months back, I started tracking my games in a spreadsheet. It's been really fun to see the win rates of my decks, as well as go back and read the notes from my old games. I also track the quality of the Rule Zero conversations I have and my opponent's commanders. So I get some really fun stats from different games, which is great. Yo, track your games. We support that shit. You know we do.
Hell yeah.
During this process, I actually noticed that over about 40 games, I was at a 60% win rate. I made a comment about them in a Discord I'm in and was immediately called a pub stomper and being told I was bringing overpowered decks to the tables. He notes that nobody he actually played with made those comments, just random people in the Discord. Sure, occasionally the Rule Zero conversations will not go over super well, or there were unintentional power mismatches, but I don't actively try to hide my deck's power level. I actually have these cards I made for my decks that I show everyone at the table before the game. Go to the post because there's cool pictures of this like card that basically explains what your deck does. I've seen a bunch of people make these.
It's like Rule Zero cards.
Yeah, Rule Zero cards. It's super, super cool.
Mm-hmm.
So after this happened, I got pretty self-conscious about my decks and all that. Everyone hates pub stompers, and I was genuinely concerned about accidentally doing anything like that. So I came up with a plan. I would play nothing but a Precon commander deck for a month and see if my win percentage fell to around 25%, which is commonly touted as the correct win rate. Here's what I found. So I'm just going to zip through some of these things. There's a bunch of notes here. It was a Prosper Precon. All games were untrusted games, i.e. playing games with random people on Spell Table, Discord, or at an LGS. Played 29 games in total and won 21 of the games. So 72% win rate.
Whoa.
My pregame discussion was as follows. Hey guys, I'm playing a Precon. It's Prosper still, so I don't think it's any slouch. Feel free to play whatever deck you want. As long as you're all on an even power level, I don't mind being the weaker deck here. I played in every type of game from CDH, 2 games of which they won, to all Precons. Most of their losses were in the all Precon games. Outside of full Precon games, the only other times I lost was when there was a significant power difference between the other players. I absolutely used politics to my benefit and made strategic decisions with my cards. Phrases like, okay, I'll make you a deal. If you don't attack me, I'll continue to be an unaltered Precon, ha ha ha, which usually resulted in a chuckle, and the attacker spell being redirected at someone else. I intentionally avoided ever playing a Tali. I would either pitch him or hold him in hand, but never play him. I took Sam Black's advice of minimizing your threat profile to heart. I focused primarily on never being the biggest threat at the table, even if it meant holding lands in my hand and missing a land drop, especially if they had a turn 1 Soul Ring. Not playing certain cards like Atali, like they mentioned, intentionally making bad plays and then calling them out as bad and saying, like, I don't understand the board state correctly. Doing my best to assemble a board without drawing attention to it and avoid discussing their history or experience with Magic. Or bring up being a Precon or lower power deck periodically. Oftentimes around turns I know will be big and swingy for other players. Things like, wow, I really enjoy this Precon a ton. I built a ton of EDH decks, but this one's just so fun. It doesn't do splashy things, blah, blah, blah. Basically talk about the Precon. No one was ever salty at all about losing to a Precon. Of 29 games, not a single person ever said they were upset to lose to it. To this point, games were incredibly fun a vast majority of the time. I often played multiple games with the same table, which is not common for me. I typically only have time for 1 or 2 games per session. So after dropping as much information as I could to provide, I guess my question really shifts a bit to something more like, is win percentage an absolute deterministic metric of whether one has pub stomped? If you're still with us, that was a long one.
There's obviously so much to get into there. I'm going to just start off by responding to that last question of, is win percentage always the metric that indicates pub stomping? And the answer is no. Like, I think that there is a specific attitude and like kind of play behavior that really ends up resulting in what people perceive as pub stomping.
Yeah.
If you're just showing up and you just happen to eke out these wins over and over and over, or, you know, you're slightly at an advantage and so your win rate is just like way higher than you would expect it to be, it's really different than like intentionally bringing a deck that you know is higher power and trying to stomp based on that. Like the goal that Suki Time seems to have here is still to have fun. You know, they're playing to win, which is like a completely reasonable way to play. but they're not picking their deck, showing up, choosing the pod. They're not making all these decisions based on the goal of winning. They're making those decisions based on having a good time, and then winning just happens to happen. So to that final question, no, I don't think that there is this definitive metric that's going to tell you you're pub stomping.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think pub stomping is tied to win rate. Frankly, I think a lot of pub stompers lose because people realize that they're playing a super overpowered deck and they fucking dogpile them and knock them out of the pod as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
How many times have we read a post where that kind of happens,
Mm-hmm.
There's a few interesting things happening in this post. So there's kind of this question of like, Sugi Time has this win rate of 60%. They're like, okay, can I continue to have this win rate by playing a precon? That's kind of the real question, right? Can I maintain this really high win rate with a precon? And I think there's something to talk about in how they're doing it. It's almost like they're cosplaying as a newer player by running this precon, right? And, I don't think it's malicious or anything, but there's elements in here of specifically making bad plays to look more unassuming, I think goes above and beyond what your average player would do to try to get a win or look unassuming, And it's really taking that stuff to like its utmost limit. Like, I'm going to not play my most powerful cards because I don't want attention on me. I'm going to miss land drops so people think I'm behind. I'm going to say some stuff about the board state that maybe implies I don't really understand what's going on and that I'm kind of new. I'm not going to talk about my player experience. I think that if you combine all those things, you're really trying to eke out a win by being the most unassuming player at the table and taking that to like its furthest extent. And a key part of that is playing a precon. And what comes along with somebody sitting down and playing a precon, even if they weren't doing all this extra stuff, you do kind of assume someone playing a precon is going to be worse at the table and maybe not focus them down,
I think part of that is because like precons have a pretty wide range now that recently has gotten like much more powerful. Cause like older precon, like you hear, oh, you're playing a precon. It's like, oh, I guess I got to pull out some trash so that like these people can like fucking hang. But like a lot of the newer precons are just, they fucking slap. That Prosper deck slaps. Like you don't need to do much to it to have it be good. It just is good already. You used to have to take out like fucking 20 cards to have them do anything.
Yeah, this came up when we were on that Lua episode where she was saying like she feels like a precon is 0. And I kind of jokingly said, I think a lot of my decks are weaker than a precon, but I actually stand by that in some ways. Like, it is really easy to build a deck that is below a precon level. Like, if you slap 100 cards together randomly, it's going to be below a precon level. They are pretty tuned, cohesive decks. So I don't think that precon is this like starter deck mentality that people like used to apply and was more relevant in some of those earlier decks that were printed.
Yeah, I think the reality of a precon is that it's not this weak deck that needs to be overlooked. But I think the perception of it is that it is. If I'm sitting down in a pod with 4 people and one person is like, I only have a precon, I'm not going to focus them. And add on top of that, if they are missing land drops, seem like they don't have a lot of Magic experience, or at least you're maybe making some misplays and some less optimized decision making, I'm going to overlook them. And, we talk about it a lot. When you are in a pod, being the weakest player has a benefit. Often you aren't in control of that and you're just sucking, and maybe things break good for you at some point and you come back and get the win. But it's very interesting to choose to be in control of that and be like, hey, I'm going to look as unassuming as possible to my opponents and see how I make it through this game. I also think that Sugi Time relied on a lot of really interesting political moves just by pointing to the fact that they have a precon and being like, hey, if you don't target me, I'll just continue playing this regular precon, kind of reminding people like, hey, I'm just precon level, baby. Don't look at me. Look at that other guy.
Yeah, I find myself more and more needing to ask, like, what precon is it that you're running? Not just like that, because I totally just mind blank and I'm like, oh yeah, whatever, fucking precon. Like, I'll fucking crush them later.
Yeah, I also think that this starts to point out one of the other really interesting facts about this experiment, that most of these games are happening with first time people that you're playing with. You're not playing this with an established pod.
Totally.
And there's a super standard like self-regulating effect that happens when you're playing with the same pod of 4 people, where even if you're bringing the slightly stronger deck, if you've been winning a lot, you might just get ganged up on. Like, people kind of note whether or not someone is winning a ton, and that might just kind of get built into the group mentality. Whereas in these untested groups, a 1% improvement in like your ability to win over and over again, you might end up translating into like these really high win rates that you're seeing over multiple of these games.
No, I completely agree. I think this experiment completely falls apart if you're playing in a dedicated pod, because after 2 or 3 games, people are going to be like, yeah, dude, you're fucking sandbagging over there. You did the same shit you did last game, and I'm just going to lean into you because I know you're going to get the win at the end.
Yeah.
Like, all
you probably
that
should have played that
away.
land you have, because I'm just going to
coming for
steamroll you.
You're going to need it.
But there is this thing of like playing into a blind pod where no one has that perception of you being able to do something like this. I will say this isn't pub stomping, but there's an element that feels a little similar to coming into a pod. And like there's this element that happens with pub stomping where the pub stomping player is, generally speaking, coming into a pod and misrepresenting the power level of their deck, but also the power level of them as a player. And this is kind of like that, where you're coming into a pod and sort of misrepresenting your experience with the game and trying to downplay the power of your deck during the game. So there's similar elements there. Mm-hmm. I don't think it's pub stomping, but it feels a little like pool sharking. You're like, what's this game? Pool? I've never played pool. I'll bet you $50 that I can beat you in this game of pool. And then you just fucking crush a random person playing pool. And you're like, sweet.
And it doesn't matter that you're using the shitty cue while you're trying to do that. Like,
exactly.
It doesn't change the fact that you're, as a pilot, pretty good at whatever you're doing.
Yeah, it's like a perception thing.
And it's why I hope that Sugi Time is able to kind of move past this as an experiment. Like, you've done your experiment, you've learned some things from it, you kind of proven it, but you're missing a little bit of that reason that you're sitting down to play, which, if it's in person or things like that, it's often to kind of try and, maybe make some friends, meet some people, have a enjoyable time, like have these positive social interactions. And you kind of have to dodge some of that, or avoid some of it, or sacrifice a bit of that in order to like misconstrue your experience level. You can't have those kind of classic fun conversations of, oh, when did you start playing? Oh, I hated that block. There's like all this stuff that I feel like Magic players talk about all the time that you have to avoid in a situation like this.
I don't know why the fuck you play Magic, Mike, but like, I'm playing to fucking win. I don't need any of this fucking friend bullshit that you're talking about over there.
Hey, if we check our stats, it's true, because Tony is the winningest of all of us.
Yikes.
I guess that's why Mike's the losingest.
Yikes.
I think it should be mentioned that Sugi Time caught a fair amount of heat on this one on the Reddit post. A lot of people were like, oh, you were like lying to those people. You're kind of misconstruing it. It's like, yes and no. Like, I don't think this was really malicious. I do think Sugi Time is just conducting an experiment. However, I think the question of the experiment is different. If we're going to really talk about like, what's the hypothesis here? The hypothesis is, what is the highest consistent win rate you can get piloting a Precon, period. And then it's like, what's your method? I'm going to do everything I can to be as unassuming as possible, leaning into the fact that I'm playing a Precon, showing everybody that, hey, this is a Precon, this is Precon level, and falling into every perception that comes with that, and then maximizing your win con. I don't really think you're proving that you can't pub stomp with a Precon, which I don't think you can do anyways, but it's like this different question,
I think your hypothesis is not testable, and you can't develop a null hypothesis there, Sam. So you might,
I'm an environmental engineer.
Your peer review might run into some issues, but
Are you fucking math nerds?
I'm a dirt engineer, dude. Don't tell me about null hypotheses. These hypotheses.
I think it's hypothesi. I'm pretty sure.
Okay, kids. What do we think the salt rating is here?
It's high now. I'm mad.
My take is that it seems like this is generating a lot of salt in other people that this guy looked into this. Honestly, it sounds like people had enjoyable games. They managed to play a couple games in a row a few times. So I don't think this is an extremely high salt situation. And hopefully it mellows out some of the salt people were feeling by just accusing, a high win rate of equating to pub stomping.
Yeah, I don't think this is really a high salt situation. I think the reaction that this got on Reddit really had to do with the messaging of it. And I think if you were asking a different question and saying like, hey, I tried to be as unassuming as possible at a table, and this is how I maximized my win rate, that seems more in line with this. Whereas people are really jumping on these things about being like purposefully unassuming and stuff like that.
Spicy.
Interesting.
Well, what else do we got?
We got more. We definitely got more. I'll tell you that.
That fucking for free. Give it to me then.
This next one comes to us from the EDH subreddit. What a fucking surprise. And the username of this person is totally not an alt 333.
332 were taken.
Yeah, exactly. And the post is titled, "How do I deal with a problem player?" And the post goes, "Hey everyone, I need some help. I've arranged a casual budget deck building challenge for the Christmas season where someone randomly gets another deck someone else built and keeps it." Yo, we were just talking about our Christmas tradition.
Inspiring.
I had a player submit a deck list. All deck lists were to be public so people can see what they might get to play with. And he had some land destruction spells in there. I and another player agreed this wouldn't be suitable for the type of event we were trying to run, and he proceeds to start whining about this. After this, he spams the channel, and I ask him to stop, which irks him, and he proceeds to personally attack me. I ended up banning him from the event, and he continues on for 20 minutes. I already actively avoid playing with him, but I was willing to bite the bullet for the event. My main question is, what do I do? I have friends who go to this LGS. It would be harder to ask them to come to a different one with me, so I'm hesitant to just leave. I suppose I'm concerned he'll attempt to keep starting drama every time he sees me at the shop, in which case, what then? There is an edit here. Edit to people asking. It was 3 or 4 pieces of mass land destruction in a casual budget builder event. If it was a single land destruction, I'd have been perfectly fine with it, but it wasn't. Me and others agreed that this wasn't the place for MLD, so it wasn't just my opinion either before I banned it from the event.
To the main question here that this poster is asking, did you read this poster's name?
Totally not an alt.
Oh.
Did you think it was totally not anal T?
It could be.
Mike, it's totally not anal T.
All right. Well, agree to disagree. I think that this is one of those instances where I think you kind of just need to risk it in terms of going to the LGS. So far, all of this vitriol has just been online, and people do behave differently in a Discord chat than they do in person. Maybe there's a history here, but I think you just give it a go of going to the LGS. If you find that in person this player is being as miserable, at that point you could actually probably talk to the LGS store owner saying, hey, look, this person is saying these things to me. It was making me unable to play at the store. There's a point where you can kind of try to escalate this to people that may be able to have a third party discussion with him.
Yeah.
But it's definitely unfortunate to have something that's just this positive deck building experience spiral like this.
I was just going to say, when you go out of your way to organize something like this for a group of people, I would probably have done it too. Like if I was organizing this event and are taking time out of my own personal life and schedule to do so, like it's a pain in the ass to organize shit like this sometimes. Yeah. And so I think they're well within their rights to be like, sorry, I'm just not going to deal with this. You're just no longer a part of this. It's like the easier way.
But also a random deck building challenge like this is totally the place where someone might experiment with putting some spicy stuff into a deck. If you're not playing the MLD, like you're giving it to someone else, there's this component of like, oh, maybe this is a testing ground where we can try some stuff that isn't typically okay, or like is normally has this kind of taboo against it. And it might behoove this Reddit, OP here to
read the name, Mike.
It might behoove totally not anal T to set up the rules for something like this in advance? Because I could imagine that being one of the really frustrating parts about it. If I built a list and then someone was like, oh, actually, you can't put that piece into the deck, that would really frustrate me.
It is very hard to set rules for events like this and not have people cheese the rules as much as possible.
Yeah.
Like if you say we have a deck building challenge, it's going to be $50 decks and you can't have MLD. Cool. You didn't say I couldn't run all the stacks pieces. I'm going to build a crazy kooky hate bears deck and be really annoying. And then they're like, oh, no stacks pieces. It's like, okay, well, define a stacks piece. What does it do? As you try to define those things, it becomes this rabbit hole of like, with any set of rules, there's always going to be this ceiling and someone will build to that ceiling. And you kind of have to accept that they're going to. I think it's a losing battle to try to make rules on that kind of stuff. I mentioned it in a previous episode, but I used to run this EDH league and we tried to put rules in place to prevent stuff like that. And it's really, really hard. We actually had that stacks thing come up. They're like, well, you can't have stacks pieces. And I was like, what's a stacks piece? Define a stacks piece. Are we going to come up with a list of specific cards? Because I guarantee you, I'll find something outside of that list that's going to be annoying. Not that I was building a deck.
So you're
that
trying
way.
to be the annoying player, Sam? Is that what I'm hearing?
I'm banning you from our
Like,
Secret Santa, Sam.
Can I be the dick that ruins this for everyone?
No, not that I was trying to do that,
Man, what a jerk.
but I
Everybody
wanted to
hate at Sam. Everybody at Sam right now.
No. But whenever there's a rule, I want to poke a hole in it, you know? Like I used to do board game playtesting and miniature game playtesting for Cool Mini or Not for a bunch of the games that they used to do. And the thing that I did for our playtest group was read the rules and find the broken shit, like poke holes in it. If you set a rule, you could do this. I'm like, well, you could technically do this and get away with it. And like people like that are all over the place and they're going to try to build to that extent. You know, you just got to go back to the LGS. Like, don't make this one unfortunate event just totally change your pattern. And my real advice would be, if you see this person at the LGS, apologize to them. Go out of your way and be like, hey, dude, that was a super cool deck build. I'm sorry, but it just didn't really fit the vibe. But I do think it was a really spicy build. Whatever. Like, it doesn't have to be genuine. Just fucking say it.
So Sam's actively saying fucking lie to people.
Yeah, lie.
I do not approve of this. I do not approve of this.
My name is Tony Guerra and I approve this message.
Tony said, I'm going to have to bleep your last name, Tony.
Well, what's the salt rating, boys? How do we think people felt about this one? I love that you both just welled at the same time. That was a big thing for me.
Yeah, my salt rating for this one is, this is a packet of salt. This is a couple small packets of salt, but not because the salt is small. These are the packets of salt that come in your takeout and you didn't ask for them, but they're in there anyways. You keep ordering from the same takeout place and they keep giving you packets of salt and you don't want it. This is the salt that you don't want, but you always are going to get with this type of event.
Where are you getting takeout that they're giving you packets of salt that you don't want?
Usually it's chopsticks or plastic utensils, but
That's what I fucking thought, bitch.
soy sauce is salty, dude.
When do you not want soy sauce though?
I got high quality. We had an episode about this. I have high quality aged soy sauce.
Well, whatever. For the rest of us scrubs that don't have that, like, we fucking want the soy sauce that they
Just
give
drink
us.
salty gutter water, you street rat.
Love that.
So unhinged today.
How about you slap me with that next one? Is there another one?
Maybe. Yeah, I do have another. And I will slap you with it. This next one comes from the EDH subreddit. It comes from user Sarsaparilla.
Nice.
User Sarsaparilla. Give him an up, folks.
Sarsaparilla or sarsaparilla?
Sarsaparilla. I don't really understand the question you asked. You just said the same word twice.
No, I said sarsaparilla or sarsaparilla.
So are those different things?
I don't know. That's why I'm asking. I've only heard of sarsaparilla.
I think it's sarsaparilla. Don't you
Rilla.
also say milk?
Isn't it Rella? No, that's fucking like
Say
those
milk, Tony.
New
Say
Hampshire
milk.
people.
Tony,
Milk.
what do you drink out of? What do you drink out of if you're thirsty and you're in like an airport or something?
A
You gotta drink
glass?
something.
A cup? I say water, you fuckers. Like,
Yeah,
what else do you
that's
want
what we're
from
trying
me?
to get at.
Exactly.
All
I knew
right,
it was
carry
something, some sort of liquid you said weird. The post title is "We should call spite plays what they are," and the post goes. So this has been sparked by conversations in my play group and other ones that my friends are in. In each of our play groups, we have a player who has played something along these lines. Always attacks the player who attacks him or her, even when somebody is probably scarier. Always follows through on threats, and then proceeds to try and extort people with said threats, even when following through said threats would probably put the threatener in a much worse position. Will retaliate in a game for actions that occurred in a different game. Justifies any of the above as just being just the way they play. This is, I have come to believe, quite simply a form of trolling. Trolling consists of not really playing the game to win, but to make the game more miserable for others who do try to play to win. Don't enable the trolls unless you think it is fun. Call them out for what they are. And if you can, try to find a better player to play with. Looking back, I realized that I probably am very guilty of some of these and will try to do better to avoid this myself. So the continuation of this post is we should call spite plays what they are, trolling. Your thoughts, gentlemen?
To me, a spite play has a root earlier in the game. Like generally, a valid spite play is one where you got burned by someone earlier and you're paying them back. That's a spite play to me. And I wouldn't call that trolling. A random piece of mean play that doesn't seem to be backed up by like any solid reasoning, that is just trolling. That's not a spite play. So I do think there's a innate distinction between the two, and maybe people call one the other and the other one. But I do think there's a difference between those two things.
From that perspective, I feel like trolling causes me to then do spite plays because I'm like, you fucking trolling me, like fuck you. And I'm gonna let you have it for what you did, unless it was genuinely funny. And then I'll probably also troll, and then the snowball starts rolling.
Yeah, I think there's a randomness and a maliciousness that comes along with trolling when I think about it. Now, out of the three examples that they provided, one does kind of stick out to me, which is retaliating in game for actions that occurred in a different game.
Yeah,
I think that is definitely borderline trolling. I think that's bullshit. Like spite plays shouldn't extend from one game to another.
Yeah.
Because at that point you are just apropos of nothing going out of your way to be a dickhead to one person because you think it's funny or you think it's very justified.
One of my biggest salty baby moments in our spreadsheet is when Tony carried something from a previous game, like literally said out loud, I'm doing this because of last game. And I'm pretty sure that I was a salty little crier for the rest of that game.
It so probably happened that same night, people. It was fine. It was kosher.
We just said that's not
legal. Y'all said it wasn't fine.
Yeah, this post is about you. I posted this. I'm Sarsaparilla.
There is also a difference. Like you might just learn something about a deck and so be prepared to like react differently if they do something. Like you can carry game knowledge from a previous game into a new one and like disrupt their combo because of something, or like kill their commander early because you've learned that it's a threat if it gets out early in the game. Like those aren't necessarily spite plays or trolling. Like that's valid. You can learn from your last games, and that people definitely get that confused too.
Yeah, I think the definition of spite play is a weird one, because retaliating is technically a spite play, or, you know, dealing damage back to someone who dealt damage to you is technically a spite play. But also, like, if Tony hit me with a 1/1 and I blew up his soul ring for no fucking reason, that's also a spite play, but also a little bit more on the troll side, you know?
Nah, that's fair. That's fair.
That is spite plays in general are fine and just a normal part of the game. So it's hard to like fully demonize them as like a category of game moves, because to some extent this game is reactionary, right? Like if you come at my board it behooves me to come back at your board and show you that you shouldn't do that. You shouldn't come at me like that.
That's the second show of behooval today.
Really?
We're slaying. Me? No. I think I said it once.
Nice. Now Tony just has to say it.
Yeah.
Fucking word of the day, kids. I think it's interesting because I don't know. I feel like I keep almost flip-flopping in my, maybe it is like more confusing than I thought it was, of like the definition of these two words. Because at the same time, it's like trolling always in my head is always like kind of fun. Like it's usually innocent. It's not like malicious intent, but I don't know. I guess I don't know how to define it almost.
I think in trolling, you're taking pleasure from someone else's misery.
Yeah.
Which is not very fun. In a spite play, you're taking pleasure from evening the playing field, from settling a score.
That's a good definition.
When you troll is, troll, like that's all it.
Well, I think there's another sort of thin line on the other side of it, which is if everybody in the pod is on that vibe and being kind of goofy, like that's totally fine. Like we've played games where people are just doing ridiculous shit and doing ridiculous, silly spite plays that make no sense. And we're all just cracking up and having a good time. Usually our last game of the night after like an in-day 10-hour EDH game.
Yeah, I do love when that happens.
Yeah, it's the best.
Some of my favorite moments are, I've mentioned these before, but when when one of us is actively like, this isn't the right move, but I'm doing it.
Yeah.
Whatever
usually
it may be.
Yeah.
Honestly, it's usually you and me. Like,
yeah, that's
I
true.
think you and I are the two that do that the most, for sure.
It is true. It's funny. In a specific game, the two spite playist players will either be Tony and Sam or Tony and Nick.
Oh my God.
It's usually never Mike, and it's usually always Tony is involved.
Well, I guess I'm more the person that like won't let something die. Like if you start something, I'm gonna fucking finish it. I'm gonna keep going. There is there's no backing down, I didn't come to back down. So here we are.
Oh man.
Well, what do we think about the salt rating here? Anything spicy on this one?
I mean, this is a full shaker of salt. This person's pissed off, Like we talked about some examples of spite play and like what we'd consider trolling behavior. But if somebody is truly constantly doing this, that shit gets old, man. And if you're like, hey, why are you doing this? Like, why are you making these moves? And they're just like, it's just the way I play. To me, that speaks of somebody who isn't really taking the group experience into account and isn't listening to that conversation. Like I do think it takes a lot to have those conversations with people in your play group. And like those more serious, like, hey, what's wrong with you, man? What's going on? And to have somebody who's just not receptive to that, that is super salty for me. I mean, they even go to the point and say like, hey, you shouldn't play with these people.
Yeah.
I mean, which to me implies that they don't really want to play with the person who's doing this in their group.
Yeah.
So the examples they provide, it's like a glimpse, but it sounds like there's more going on there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What do you think, Mike?
I agree. I think this is definitely one of those ones where it's short enough that we could be missing context on either side.
Yeah.
I think OP is probably just facing someone that is, like I said earlier, kind of taking too much fun by making other people not have fun. It doesn't have to be like a net zero game like that. There's space to make moves that aren't just purely to make someone else miserable.
I feel like the salt in these scenarios are like Birdie Bot's every flavored beans. You never know what you're going to get. You pull out one, you think it's salted caramel, then it's fucking earwax. Like shit happens. Could be good, could be unpleasant, could leave a long taste in your mouth, could leave, a light, pleasant taste. But I like some trolls and I like some spite.
Tony says as he looks into the mirror next to him. I will say, I did message with this user, and when they say always, they mean always. They were like very emphatic about that. This is always this person's behavior.
Yeah.
They're always doing this. And I think that is like, you can't constantly be a dickhead.
Yeah.
Even I take a break.
See, yeah. If all you're being is a dick the whole time, then that's not funny.
Yeah,
It's
for
just,
sure.
You gotta sprinkle that in.
Exactly.
Yeah. A little sprinkle here and there.
Or at least be handsome.
So there.
That's what I do.
I was gonna say if only that worked for you, but you know.
Oh, shit. I'll edit this out. I'm cutting. Well,
is it that time?
yeah, I think it's that time of the week.
But what time?
Well, it's the time of the week.
Well, salty card of the week this week is.
I
got it in too quickly.
I gotta sing.
Couldn't even interrupt.
Fuck.
Got him.
Man.
Been learning.
Expert. I'll give you your win this week.
Nice. Hell yeah.
Lay it on us, Mike.
Now I don't trust. I don't trust this at all. The salty card of the week this week is Draneth Magistrate.
Oh.
Ooh.
So Draneth Magistrate, it is a human wizard for 1 and a white.
It's a wizard?
Yeah.
That never dawned on me.
Yeah. Now you know. Can fit in your Agar
No, I can't.
list.
I just figured it would go into Lesha.
It is an Alesha.
Oh, fuck Lesha.
Well, the text on this guy is your opponents can't cast spells from anywhere other than their hands, and it is a 1/3. So, Tony, does this card make you salty?
Yeah, it does. Even though it's a little fucking, it's a 1/2, right?
It's a 1/3.
1/3. Oh, it got a big old butt.
Don't worry, Mike only just read the stats.
Whatever. Whatever.
Do you want to know the creature type line too?
It's Draneth Magistrate we're talking about.
Yeah, we're talking about it's 1 and a white.
I thought it was 1 and a black. Yeah, so every time I play Draneth Magistrate myself, I feel really good, which is kind of like a sign of how much I dislike it when it's played against me. I definitely it comes down and I definitely usually feel pretty salty. Because again, it's one of those, as we know, Tony doesn't run a ton of removal to begin with. And so using a piece on that is annoying if I even have it in my fucking hand. And every deck I ever build is a linchpin commander. So I need my commander in order to do anything. And so the thought of the card makes me quite upset. Now, normally I personally tend to just see it in CDH. I don't think anybody's got it running that rampant. And now that I say this, everybody's going to fucking throw it into their goddamn decks.
We just talked about it.
No, I know it's in there, but it's not normally good enough that that's what Sam's going to go tutor with it, right? He's never tutored a Draneth, maybe once in a random scenario, but in general, I feel I don't see it that much in casual, so I don't feel too bad about it. And I'm usually the one playing it in CDH, so that's fine. But it does make me cringe a little bit, and by a little bit I mean a lot of bit, when it's used against me, but I feel pretty good when I play it.
All right, Sam, does this make you salty?
Not at all, really. I love Draneth Magistrate. I think it's a fantastic card. I love it as a stacks piece. It's super powerful. I run it, we already mentioned, I run it in my Alesha human deck, and I have it in a bunch of CDH stacks decks as well. I think it's an interesting card because not only does it shut down your commander, it shuts down things like Underworld Breach, where you're casting cards from your graveyard. It shuts down things where you're casting cards from exile that you might have exiled off the top of your deck. So it's
with an Uba Mask.
Totally. Yeah, I mean, there are some full locks with it, with Knowledge Pool and Uba Mask, and it's asymmetrical too, and it's very powerful for 2 mana. When it comes down against me, I do have some linchpin commanders, and usually they're in casual, so it's not too bad because again, we don't really see it often in casual. But it's one of those cards where when it comes down, kind of like every stacks piece, you have to ask yourself, is this slowing me down more than my opponents, or is it the other way? Because if it comes down, it's locking me out of running my commander, but it's also stopping Tony. And I know Tony's on a linchpin commander deck, I may be more reluctant to remove it, So I think it's got a lot of nuance to it. It's just powerful. It's great. Love it.
Totally. I think this card has way more nuance, like you were saying, than people initially give it credit for. There's a lot of cases where you play this when no one else has their commander out, and it's immediately just a lightning rod for removal. It's going to get bolted. You've got 3 players that want it gone. Then there's those cases, and these are really the cases where it makes me salty, where everyone else has got their commander out, and someone plays Drannith, and I'm the only one that hasn't played my commander yet. And then it's like, oh, okay, this is just going to screw me over the whole game, and I have to deal with it. No one else is going to deal with it. And in those moments, those can really get me, because then it feels like it's kind of a targeted stacks piece.
Yeah.
But generally, I think there is more of a table political kind of dynamic going on where more than one person is interested in removing it. And it just draws enough hate that it doesn't stick on the board for too long.
Where does it sit on the list, Mike?
It is currently at the 30th slot.
Oh, damn.
That feels
I
right.
should have guessed. I was going to say 32.
Ooh. We would have gotten close.
Yeah, that feels right.
But it has severely increased its saltiness from last year's, where it was 66th.
Oh, damn.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's fair. I think more people are feeling. I think it's becoming more common, and I think
that's more people playing it.
Yeah, definitely, because it's so powerful. Like in Alessia, if it dies, I can just bring it back. Like it's a fantastic lock.
Like it's 2 mana remove everyone's commander in a way, right? It's like totally. They can't play if it's not already out. Like 3 players get hit with this. And it like nukes other stuff too, but like the commander, right? Like for 2 mana, everyone's shit. Like
it's value, man.
It's definitely strong.
I do have to. I would be remiss to not mention that the design of this card is really hilarious, because it was released in Ikoria, which had companions, and Drannith Magistrate. The whole point of it in Standard was to stop companions, because if you cast your companion from the companion zone, it's like potentially super powerful, well, clearly we saw is super powerful, has all these busted builds that they had to nerf. And the really funny part about it is that it doesn't even hit companions anymore, because the companion rule was changed, where you have to put it into your fucking hand. So it doesn't even stop you from casting your companion, which it was designed to stop. Yeah. And it's like literally just fucks over commander players and graveyard synergies and the other shit that we mentioned. But most importantly, it's the commander stopper, like 100%. And it's so easy to drop it on turn 1 or turn 2 in like the CDH format. Like it can just crank out. Turn 1 Drannith in like an early seeding and rotation. Man, that's some power on the board right there.
Hell yeah.
I do love it.
All right. Well, that completes our salty card of the week.
Well, thanks, Mike. That was lovely.
Even though we didn't sing.
Oh, I was going to sing partway through the middle, but I fucking forgot. I was going to have a bit where I just interrupted way later.
The look on your face as he was starting to read it. I was like, he's going to do it. Like he's going to hop in, but you never did.
But I was trapped. I was enchanted by the Drannith conversation.
Riveting.
Well, thanks, Mike. And thank you, listeners, for tuning in to another episode of the Howling Salt Mine. Follow us on our social media. Come check us out on our Instagram at The Howling Salt Mine, our Twitter at Howling Salt Mine, and email us your salty stories at our Gmail, which is thehowlingsaltmine@gmail.com. As always, we ask you to keep those stories short, sweet, and to the salt. Something that really helps the podcast as well is giving us a 5-star rating on Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Give us a review. If you love the show, let people know.
Hell yeah.
You like that?
Yeah.
Big shout out to JD Burnett, the amazing tattoo artist who did the art for our podcast. If you're in Asheville, North Carolina, hit him up and get some tattoos done, dude. Do it. Well, stay salty, and don't forget to draw an additional card during your draw step.
It's the Howling Salt Mine. The Howling Salt Mine.
Well, welcome back,
Well,
everybody.
welcome back, everybody.
Well, hello, all you little prospectors out there.
Welcome back to another week
was
of the
that
Howling
voice?
Salt Mine podcast.
Well, welcome back,
We're
prospectors.
delving into
Where
those
we
damn
delve
Tony.
into the salty mines.
All right, this next one.
This next
next
one.
No.
No. No.
No.
Your chorus of no's make me stronger.